Michael Gove has delivered a speech claiming that Jews are increasingly under threat in Britain, and he's blamed pro-Palestine marchers for this state of affairs.
We know now that it is genuinely dangerous for people to be openly, clearly, proudly Jewish near these marches. At a time when we're all encouraged to be our whole authentic selves, to celebrate our identity, to be out and proud, there is only one group told that they, and they alone, can only be tolerated on terms set by others: Jews. The organizers of the marches say that there are Jewish people on their demonstrations, but they are only safe if they deny what is dear to so many Jewish people: the safety of people in Israel. If they are to be accepted on these marches, then they must knuckle under, accept the calls to globalize the Intifada or to end the Zionist entity. They have to obey the rules laid down by others, those march organizers, who reserve the right to tell Jews both where they should live in the world and how they should live on our streets.
Andrew Feinstein, I want to get your comment on this. You're, of course, a Jewish man and a supporter of Palestinian rights. What did you make of that claim? You know, Jews are only welcome on these marches if they commit to everything that all of the organizers want, and so therefore they're essentially anti-Semitic, is what he's saying.
I mean, thank goodness I don't live in this make-believe world that Michael Gove does. You know, I'm very seldom rendered speechless, but I feel almost that at this point. I mean, I've never heard such nonsense in my life. If one looks at the speakers at any of these rallies, it is extraordinary, the diversity of opinion, of political opinion. And, you know, if one looks at the Jewish bloc on these marches, and specifically at the Jewish speakers, I mean, just this last one, we're of such a diversity. We come, you know, this notion that Michael Gove and others try to impose on us, that there is sort of this Jewish community that is largely of one view. And then there are a few little outriders who conform to some sort of strange figment of his imagination and a few others' imagination of these sort of Jews who renounce their Judaism. I mean, it's actually deeply offensive. And the reality is that there are hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world in Israel who are unbelievably critical of the Israeli state. And that doesn't necessarily imply that they accept everything that the organizers of our march, I mean, if you look at the organizers, if you look at the PSC and Stop the War, if you look at the individuals concerned, amongst them, there are deeply nuanced political differences. And I think what we are seeing in reaction to what I believe as someone who's lectured at Auschwitz on genocide, what we are seeing as a consequence of what I believe is a genocide being committed in Gaza is that people from a very wide array of political opinion are uniting and mobilizing in their opposition to what Israel, with British, American, and Western European support and weapons, is doing to the Palestinian people. And to try and turn this into something akin to a comic book that Michael Gove seems to be doing is actually deeply offensive, not just to our intellects, but I think to people's political sensibilities. You know, to think that all Jews who go on these marches are like-minded thinkers, to think of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Jews around the world and in Israel itself, all think the same on all political issues around this. And this is the only way that we as Jews are given the space to express our politics is actually deeply reductionist and deeply offensive, and is more than anything else a reflection of our sclerotic politics that are both corrupt morally and materially. And I think this quote from Michael Gove is a wonderful representation of that and actually reflects quite a lot of the reasons why I've decided to stand. Because hopefully, through a lot of independent candidates in the next election, we'll be able to have a slightly more adult, more nuanced political discourse than we've had for the last few years from both the Tories and Labour in this country. Because really, this is almost as infantile, as disingenuous as David Lammy's comments, because I heard your earlier discussion about Lammy seeming to slightly alter his position. Whether that's an altering of Labour's position, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what the leader of the Labour Party has to say about it. But, he can say something like this now, but a few days ago, he was talking at a Republican Party event in the United States of America, where he completely misrepresented and, according to Mandela's grandson, abused the words and legacy of Nelson Mandela, who I worked for, to try and defend his appalling position on the genocide that is being committed. And then you see this from Michael Gove, and you think to yourself, how did our politics get to this remarkably mediocre, mendacious level? And my goodness, from here on in, it can only be up.